Utah's 1,300-bed homeless accountability center with rules and none of this come and go as you please. A lot of these folks are going to be on lockdown. They're going to be court ordered. They're going to be there to be getting treatment. They're going to be there to getting detox. They're going to be there getting their head squared away, if possible. And they won't be able to just come in and out like a normal Housing First program. Will this work? This was guaranteed to work because it doesn't even matter if this accountability center works. It's gonna basically telegraph to anybody, hey, don't be homeless in Utah. You don't want to end up in the accountability center, and that's where likely you will go unless you accept Utah's offer. Let's get into it. Here we go. So what you are seeing is you are seeing the move away from Housing First, which is a progressive ideology that if you just give people suffering from mental issues, suffering from severe chemical dependency, suffering from a combination of the two, oftentimes suffering from just their heads aren't screwed on because of so many drugs. You just take those people and put them into housing, everything's going to be fine. It's going to work out just great. It's going to work out just great. Housing First does not work. Now, what I would say is that if you have no other options, but either leaving people out in the street, just to rot and die, which we're seeing, or get them into some kind of housing, at least for some of the time, they'll be off the sidewalk. That's better. That's improvement. But what happens so often is these people have permanent housing. They have a converted hotel room to go to. They have an apartment, whatever to go to, but they end up still having a tent in the encampments because that's where they do all their drugs, and they're drug addicts, and they're criminals, and they're human traffickers, and they're thieves from the community. And just giving them housing ain't gonna work. Utah gets this. Utah was one of the first proponents of Housing First, and they have recognized what a failure it is. And you know how we know that things are a failure? Well, we do things a little like this. Here we go. Homelessness in California has risen in the order of 50 to 70% over roughly the past decade. Now, what has been the primary principle applied to homelessness? What's been the primary policy applied to homelessness over the past couple of decades? Housing First. It's a failure. It is a failure. Just straight out. It doesn't work. Homelessness in the Seattle King County area has risen sharply since 2022. And we do Housing First here as well. Yeah, just get them into an apartment. They'll be good. Right? And they're just not, because they've got the same chemical dependency issues. They've got the same mental health issues, and they're criminals. Oftentimes they're just straight up criminals in order to do what they need to do, which is to get a hit of fatty every couple of hours or more frequently, or meth, or whatever it is their drug of choice is. With the best current regional count showing roughly a 25 to 30% increase in the past 2 years. And about a 40% increase since 2020, since the pandemic, right? And who's the biggest proponent of Housing First? California. How's that working out for them? They've got, 30% of the homelessness in the United States. They've got 50% of the unhoused population in the United States, in California. And their primary go-to policy, Housing First, which is huge failure. So Utah is going down this other track here. Let's read about it a little bit. 1.6 acre or 16-acre parcel, 1,300 bed services campus. I love that. That they say will treat addiction and mental illness and provide what they call a humane alternative to the streets. All right, I'm all for that. Why wouldn't you be? Well, because this is state-run. And the homeless industrial complex gets billions and billions and billions of dollars from the government in the form of non-governmental organizations, NGOs that don't really do anything. They just don't work because, as you can see, the numbers have risen in homelessness as these NGOs take billions of dollars and say, thank you very little if we could just have some more housing. Housing doesn't work. But critics warn that the facility could amount to a detention camp. I'm okay with that. I mean, you got a bunch of whacked out nut jobs not willing to get better, not willing to get the mental health care they need. They need to be in either treatment or a mental institution, right? And since we're no longer doing that, a detention camp, I'm okay with that. Project stems from Trump's executive order titled Ending Crime and Disorder on America's Streets. It's a great title. Order threatens to withhold federal funds from states and cities that fail to criminalize encampments and calls for expanded use of involuntary civil commitment for people experiencing homelessness, because these people should not be on the streets. You see some of these people and you're like, oh my word, what is going on? You will see people in the fit of either a psychotic episode or, just absolutely 10 sheets to the moon on some kind of drug. You will see women completely without a stitch of clothing on in the midst of some kind of psychosis or drug. I mean, in a homeless encampment, tell me how that works out, right? I mean, tell me how that works out. It's horrific. And yet progressives say, wow, housing first. It's great. It's great. And then the people in the encampments, hey, have you guys had any services lately? No. The whole thing's just a failure. It also directs Department of Housing, HUD, to end its support of housing first policies that provide housing without requiring treatment or sobriety. And that is where the 1300 Accountability Center in Utah comes in, because a judge can say, yep, all right, you got to go here. Yep, all right, you need to go here. Gives them that option. And then you know what people in Utah do? I don't think I want to go to the Accountability Center next time. I need to get the F out of here. This ain't working for me. I'm off to Portland. I'm off to LA. I'm off to Seattle. They won't hassle me there. That Mamdani, he said no sweeps. That Katie Wilson in Seattle, both new mayors, socialists, they're not doing any sweeps. I can just do whatever the F I want there. So by even just proposing this, Utah is on the winning side against homelessness, because it puts up a barrier. It puts up the message that, hey, we're not going to have this grab-ass game of giving you hard-earned taxpayer dollars for housing when you're going to still be hanging out in a tent doing all the drugs you want. We're not doing that. That's not what we're doing here. Less than a week after the order was issued, Utah's Republican leadership responded in support. We got Spencer Cox, along with State Senate President and House Speaker, wrote to the Utah Homeless Services Board to say they do not support housing first policies that lack accountability. So in my thing, you've got to have accountability. You've got to have something dependent upon something else. Hey, if you want housing, here's what we need you to do. We need you to support. We need you to give us a urinalysis. We need you to get a job. We need you to do this. We'll work with you, but you got to do this for us. It's conditional. It's conditional. This whole, hey man, we'll give you housing and hope you work it out. That doesn't work. We've proven that time and time again. The data actually says housing first does not work. But, you listen to the homeless industrial complex people, they're like, oh, this is a dire program. It's going to be terrible. So the result is a plan for a massive facility more than 7 miles from downtown. What is it? It's Salt Lake City. It's outside of Salt Lake City. And of course, the folks in Salt Lake City are like, God, no. But this isn't one of those places where you can kind of come and go. It ain't that. The center, expected to open in 2027, would include more than 300 beds for court-ordered civil commitment. All right, basically treatment for prisoners. Hundreds more for treatment as an alternative to jail, and other sections for what the plan describes as work-conditioned housing. So this is all conditioned upon something. You either got to pay to play. You got to do something here. You got to contribute. You got to be held accountable. That's called tough love. And you know what? Progressives, they don't want that. They just want an open checkbook. If we just had some more housing, it's kind of like socialism. If we just had some more time, we could put it in place and we could get this. No, it's never worked. It's never going to work moving forward, and not sweeping encampments will work at attracting homelessness. Guaranteed. Here's an interesting comment by the person at Utah Homeless Services Board. An accountability center is involuntary, okay? You're not coming in and out. Good, as it should be. He said Utah intends to end what he called a culture of permissiveness, and instead guide people towards human thriving. Instead of this notion where if you just allow people to live in a homeless encampment, they're somehow going to work it out on their own and figure out what you're doing to get them on the right track. Now, where I see all of this that just absolutely goes sideways is all these NGOs, non-governmental organizations, get billions of taxpayers' dollars, and homelessness just gets worse because they're not really doing anything. They're not really doing anything. They're not putting people into treatment. Most people on the streets in a homeless encampment don't want to go into treatment. They don't want to go get mental health. They don't. They just want to do their drugs, die on the streets. That's what the vast majority of them want to do. They're not looking to get a job. They're not looking to contribute to society. They're just looking to get high and basically live a life of absolute decrepancy. It's just terrible. It's terrible. And yet we allow it because of progressive ideology. That tells you how effed that is, right? They're going to be actively enforcing anti-camping, anti-loitering, all these other laws if you step foot off the campus, he said. State estimates the campus will cost $75 million to build. That sounds cheap. And more than $30 million a year to operate. That also sounds cheap. Give me two. For a facility to treat such a large number of people adequately, the cost will be much higher than $75 million. Okay, that's fine. But how many billion are individual cities spending on homelessness anyway? California spent $24 billion. Homelessness got progressively worse, and they can't account for the $24 billion that they've spent over XYZ number of year period. Got a couple of real estate developers that absolutely took them to the cleaners. But the vast majority of it goes to salaries of those who are deeply embedded in the homeless industrial complex. That's just how it is. Money goes somewhere, goes to all these people making $200,000 a year that have the genius concept of, we just need more housing. You're a numbnut if you believe that. It doesn't work. It does not work. And we have shown that time and time again. But in New York City, in Seattle, we're going to get out that popcorn, start eating that popcorn, because we're going to have a front and row seat to what happens when you don't do sweeps. Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be impressive. The demise will be impressive. Now, what New York has that Seattle doesn't have is New York has a lot of shelter. They have a ton of shelter because of a state law that basically says we need to have a bed for everybody that's homeless. And so they essentially do. Whereas Washington State and a lot of other states have gone for more of the permanent housing versus shelter facility. Shelter facility, you can put in literally, a couple hundred people, no problem. 500 people, no problem. Because it's dormitory styled housing, right? It's not individual rooms. Now, all the homeless folks, they want individual rooms because they have more privacy. Yeah, they can do their drugs in private and not have any consequences. This is where things have gotten, right? A 300 to 400 bed mental and behavioral health facility that people are not allowed to leave is not a shelter, but an incarceration option. I'm okay with that. Take people off the streets, give them an incarceration option. I'm all right with that. Okay, what's the problem here? I don't see a problem. Having such a facility co-located with a shelter would probably lead to a sense that if you do not follow the rules in one facility, you could be moved into the whatever the rules are, they are. But Utah is going to benefit from this. because people aren't going to go, let's see, Utah. What have I heard about Utah? Oh, good Lord, the Accountability Center. No, we don't want that. We don't want that. Legal experts are also questioning whether the plan's use of civil commitment will comply with Utah law. So what you've got is you've got 95% of all mental institutions have been closed since the mid-1950s. 95%. So where are all those people? They're running around the streets. They're running around the streets. We had one, unfortunately, last week in Seattle. Guys running up and down Southwest Holgate Street, I think it is, in West Seattle with the gun. He's just running around. He's got mental issues. He's literally, probably whacked out on drugs, got some mental issues, pointing a gun at everybody, running around a pretty major street in Seattle. And the police come up on him and he points his gun at the police and they pop him. He drops down. He comes back up and he points his gun again at the police. They crank off like 50 rounds, kill the guy. Because he's mental. He belongs in a mental institution. But when you have somebody running at you, police protocol is, hey, it's not only our lives, it's the safety of anybody in this residential area. We got to take out this one guy. So instead of that guy being in a mental institution alive where he probably belongs, he's dead. His family's going to bury him. And that's because we've dumped out all the mental institutions and they live on the street. They do drugs. They live on the street. This is an interesting comment here. One of the most significant steps forward in decades here in our state. This is more talking about Utah. This is more than a facility. It is a statement of who we are as a state. So you've got, on one hand, you've got New York City and Seattle, just absolute progressive bastions of idiocy. Oh, yeah, we're not going to sweep encampments anymore. This is going to work out splendid. You're going to see point blank what that ends up with. That ain't going to be good. And then you're going to see what states like Texas, Oklahoma, Utah are doing, which is they are pushing back in some pretty major ways. Oklahoma's had Operation Safe, something like that. Operation Community Safe or something like that. It allowed their state troopers to clean out homeless encampments on public land. I mean, what a genius concept. Instead, in libtard states, in libtard counties in cities, you don't even have your own police department working with other police departments. Like ICE. They're like, oh no, don't talk to them. Those guys are bastards. I mean, those guys actually deport people. Can you imagine? And so you're not sweeping homeless encampments either, and you're certainly not allowing your police department to sweep homeless encampments. We barely have that here in Seattle, and it shows. But Mayor Harrell, he went pretty hard on the homeless encampment sweeps because he understood the optics of downtown Seattle, the optics of any downtown are critical to running your city because that's where all the money comes from, right? Good example of that is Chicago. Chicago's taxes are absolutely skyrocketing because they don't have the businesses downtown. They've all left. So when your downtown core loses businesses, loses tax revenue, loses excise tax from the sale of buildings, when those buildings drop in value, when you don't have the leases going, you don't have all that activity, who pays? Who pays the missing tax dollars? The constituents in massively increased residential property taxes. That's what's happened in Chicago. The one example I always give is the one dude who had a tax bill of $10,000 and change, and that went up to $19,000 for a single year's taxes. $19K on a home that's maybe $300, maybe $350, maybe $250. I don't know. It's absolute insanity, just like not sweeping the homeless encampments. So here's a little bit more explanation. The commitment center is a large share of the beds are reserved for people under court orders, not those voluntarily seeking help. Plans cited by state officials envision roughly hundreds of beds dedicated to psychiatric civil commitments and hundreds more for mandated addiction treatment, which is explicitly framed as an alternative to jail. meaning entry and exit will often not be voluntary. All right, so you committed this crime. You were high as a kite. Okay, you got to go to treatment, but it's going to be real treatment, and you're going to have to do a UA. And your graduation from this program is dependent upon this. If you want to get housing down the road, you got to follow these steps. And guess what? You're not going to be able to come and go as you want. You're in this treatment. Now, the flip side to that is people will say, well, unless an addict is willing to get treatment on their own, that'll never work. But it does work because it's a pushback from Utah on this whole concept of, hey, man, do drugs wherever you want. It's good. It's pushback on that. And from that standpoint, whether or not this 1,300 bed actually gets built or actually physically works, what does the data say? It is a step in the right direction. You know what's not? Not sweeping in New York City, not sweeping in Seattle. Oh, it's going to be great. I mean, it's why advocates call it dangerous. Civil rights and homeless advocacy groups, they would rather see the homeless live and die on the sidewalk as we have to walk around them. That's what they want to see. That's what they believe is these people's right. Oh, yeah, they should just be able to shoot up and die on the sidewalk. All good. Saying concentrating more than 1,000 people in a remote, state-controlled compound enables sweeping deprivation of liberty. Well, what about the liberty of people who can't use their own parks because you got a bunch of whacked-out drug addicts on drugs that are mentally insane using said park? What about their liberty? Oh, yeah, don't talk about them. Oh, good Lord. With little meaningful choice, they warn that combining shelter, psychiatric institution, and a quasi-correctional accountability center in one place invites abuse, especially with weakened Medicaid and uncertain funding for quality mental health staffing. You know, there's always some chicken shit excuse for these people not wanting real accountability. You know what the bottom line is? They want their money. They want their homeless industrial complex program, and they want people to just be able to do whatever the F they want at the expense of taxpayers. They don't care. The civil rights groups, go F yourself. You guys are a bunch of Looney Tunes. You guys don't do anything for anybody, right? Some advocates describe the campus as akin to an internment camp, pointing to its isolation. That's the whole point. You want to prevent people from coming into your community and thinking they can just go live in whatever effing tent they want. Push back, push back, push back. Sweeps, sweeps, sweeps. Your alternative? Hey, man, smoke a joint, hang out in a tent, do some drugs, go steal from the community, go beat somebody up. It's going to be great. Maybe we'll break into a car or two. Who knows? The night is young, right? I mean, that's literally, those are your options. Those are your two options. There's no real in between. This whole notion that housing first is the be all and end all doesn't work. You got to get people where they need to be, which is mental institution, detox, or jail. Those are your three options. Can't be on the streets. Can't just be living wherever the F you want. How it fits national policy shifts. Yeah, this is a massive, massive policy shift. And I like the direction it's going. I think whatever it is, what you're going to do is you're going to divide states into two camps. One that completely supports homelessness. And guess what? Their tax base is going to have to keep chipping in, because it's not going to get better. Homelessness is going to explode. Then you'll have the other states like Oklahoma, Texas, Utah, where you see what their policies are doing. Who wants to deal with that stuff? Tough love? Nah. Give me the place where harm reduction's the thing, where they give me everything but the drugs. If I've shot up too many times in my arm and my vein, they give me the booty bump kit, meaning I put the drugs in my backside and, bypass my gastrointestinal tract because I get really high that way. That's a real thing. Seattle taxpayers' dollars have paid for that. Booty bump kit. Yeah, it's mentally challenged, right? So is housing first. So are a lot of these policies. No sweeps. And we're going to have a front row seat to the end results of what this looks like. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, because I'm going to walk you right on through it. It's going to be epic. Thanks again for being here. Catch up soon. Bye for now.